The year is 1975 and the Vietnam War is finally over. And Tippi Hedren, who is a famous Hollywood actor, who's most well known for her part in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, a movie that has stayed with me and scarred me for my whole life, but that's besides the point, is working as a relief coordinator in Sacramento for an organization called Food for the Hungry. This organization was taking, Vietnamese refugees and giving them vocational skills, feeding them, helping them, assimilate to American culture as, refugees. And Tippi Hedren was working with 20 Vietnamese women, and she couldn't help but notice how much they were paying attention to her manicure, and they were so interested in how, clean and pretty her nails were. And so then she had the idea to have her manicurist and, other people in the industry come up and teach these women how to do nails. And not only did her personal manicurist come up once a week to teach them how to do, specific skills, she also helped them, get their licensing and, get job placement. And it's like concentric circles, right? So these original 20 women taught another 20 women who taught another 20 women, and the industry just boomed. And essentially what they did was brought this luxury that was only afforded to the elites and, movie stars and things like that. And they brought it to everyday women, and they could go and get a manicure and feel pampered and do something, luxurious for themselves. Something that many of them couldn't do, before. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Black community and Black women specifically and their role in how successful and ubiquitous, Vietnamese nail salons have become. And though Vietnamese people drove the industry of the nail salon, Black women really drove the culture. With women like Donna Summer, Diana Ross, Florence Griffith Joyner, and now of course we have women like Meg Thee Stallion. And you of course cannot talk about nails and not mention Cardi B. And there is a documentary about this entire story called Nailed It. Unfortunately I haven't watched it yet. But I have heard Adele Pham, the person who produced this film, and she said something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, where else can you walk into a place and see Asian women and Black women holding hands? I found something so profound and beautiful in that statement. And I always had a soft spot for this story. I guess, being the daughter of immigrants myself, I can only imagine how terrifying it must have been to come to a country with no money, no skills, after having just survived a war, most likely lost, members of your family, if not your entire family, and trying to, make a life for yourself. And to see that these women have built a multi-billion-dollar industry, I don't know, it truly is an incredible story. So yeah, credit all around. Credit to Tippi Hedren, credit to the Vietnamese women, and credit to Black women, because I love getting my nails done, and I think about this every time I walk into the nail salon.
Why does anyone care? Nick, let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a woman hand another woman a tampon in public? Probably not. Why? Because when a woman hands another woman a tampon, it often looks something like this. We become David fucking Copperfield, masters of sleight of hand, just because we have our period. And God forbid anyone knows that you have your period. God forbid that anyone knows that half the population every 28 days or so has their periods and they need a tampon. And we are taught this from a very, very young age. From a very young age, we're not supposed to talk about it, our periods, or things like discharge. You don't say it out loud. Don't say it too loud. We don't want anybody to know. We don't want anybody to know that you are experiencing one of the most normal things a human body can go through, but shh, don't tell anybody. And because of that, young girls think that there's something wrong with them, something that is worthy of being shamed over, even though it's something so natural. Framing something as natural as discharge or your period as something that is disgusting only fuels this bigger narrative that women's bodies are disgusting and they're unclean. So when healthcare workers are the ones driving this narrative, it literally endangers women. It endangers women because it prevents them from going to their doctors regularly because they feel embarrassed and ashamed of their own bodies and their own body's natural function. It keeps them from telling the truth about things because they feel ashamed because they know that their bodies have been the targets of ridicule their whole life. It makes us feel unsafe in a place that should be the most protected. Somebody made a comment in one of my comment sections that sitting on those tables, some women have gotten the worst news of their entire lives. And that really struck me because it's so true. I know women who've been seated on those very same examination tables who've gotten news about miscarriages or about cancer. The worst news of their lives have been delivered on those examination tables. So to see people who are supposed to be providing care make these the object of ridicule is very, very alarming and should not be something that we should just let slide. Women at their most vulnerable are in these positions. And we've been so conditioned to think that it is acceptable to be the objects of ridicule for our bodies just functioning normally. That's why people care, Nick.